Hello, and welcome to That Thing I Did for a Year, a podcast where we interview fourth-year University of Toronto students about experiences they had in a year away from school. My name is Ilya. I'm a fourth-year industrial engineering student here at U of T, and today I'll be talking to Raymond. Behind production is Arkadiy Hungarovsky, a fourth-year engineering science student and the mastermind behind the operation. So, today we're going to be talking to Raymond. Raymond, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Raymond. I'm a fourth-year mechanical engineering student, and I did my PY at Baylis Medical.
Sweet. So, before we get to the PY, what made you want to go into mechanical engineering?
That's kind of funny. So, the first thing was that I got into U of T for track one, and I wasn't actually sure which discipline I wanted to be in until the day it was due. And the thing that made me pick it was there's this program at George Brown College where it's machining fast track program, kind of like that.
Okay.
And it's basically during the summer you do stuff like machining, welding, SolidWorks, and programming and stuff like that.
More hands-on kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I kind of like that a lot. And it's kind of something that you couldn't get from doing first year. You wouldn't be able to know what you wanted to do.
Right.
So that's kind of why I picked mechanical, because I wanted to continue working on that kind of stuff.
So was that George Brown College thing in the summer after first year?
Yeah, so I did it between first year and second year.
Oh, okay.
And you choose during the summer. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I was kind of going through it, and I was do I kind of want to do this for as a future career or something? And I was yeah.
Okay, you liked it.
Yeah.
All right. Was that backed up by second year? When you went into second year mech, were you oh, that's what I expected?
Kind of. I did do some stuff. So in second year, a lot of the mechanical students actually go and do weekend machining stuff, for course credit, and I'd be oh yeah, I already did it, so I don't even have to do it. And then just a lot of courses where they introduce SolidWorks and programming, and having that extra knowledge actually helped a lot.
Okay,
with,
so
doing courses and stuff.
So it sounds like the George Brown thing backed up what you were doing in second year pretty well.
Yeah.
Nice. Did you end up doing design stuff outside of class, at any point before PY?
Yeah, so in second year, I was part of UTAT, which is aerospace.
Okay,
and I was also part of Blue Sky, so I was just helping with general workshop stuff. So for Blue Sky, I helped with the fabrication team. So they're doing layups for mini models of their solar car, and also helping with preparing for the race that they do every 2 years.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and then for UTAT, I was helping on the rocketry team, so I was helping machine certain parts for the rocket. So I was mostly just manufacturing the pieces, but I wasn't really a part of the design of the projects or anything like that.
It sounds like you got pretty deep into the actual machining and the physical creation of stuff. Ever since first year. Did you do that at all before coming into university?
I had shop class. That was the extent of my experience with that kind of stuff. But yeah, I really liked it as a course as a class when I did it in high school. So.
Okay, and you put that forward.
Yeah.
All right. So you get to third year, after doing 3 years of mech. Why did you decide to do PY?
That was actually one of the main reasons why I picked U of T, because I wanted a university with a co-op program, right? And I think the big two that I was deciding between was U of T and Waterloo. And the big difference is that PY is 16 months, while Waterloo is 4 months in class and then working in class. And I thought that working longer at one place would be a lot more beneficial than working 4 months.
Why?
Just because they know you'll be there for longer, and you'll be able to develop what you've been working on for a longer period of time, and then eventually you'll be able to do more in-depth stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not from the beginning of PY, you weren't really thinking about breaking it up or anything like that. You were trying to be in one place for a long time and go deep.
Yeah, I kind of wanted that kind of experience, yeah.
Did you know what kind of thing you wanted to go deep into? What industry?
I had no idea. I applied to everything when I was in third year.
So what's everything? What's the range on that?
So I applied to TTC. I applied to Saffron, which is aerospace.
Okay.
I applied to Spin Master, which is a toy company. And I applied to a few biomedical companies.
Okay, gotcha. Where did you end up working?
Baylis, so Biomedical.
Okay. How did that happen?
It was kind of just I got the interview, and then as I was talking about what I could bring and all that stuff, general interview stuff, it kind of turned into more of like a conversation than like an interview, right? Like just the person I was talking to was like very approachable and like open to speaking about a lot of stuff. And I kind of liked that from them. And then going on from that, I would like email following up with it, like following up with the interview and being like, oh, like would it be possible to speak with like students that are currently working there, like on PUI, so that I could ask about the experience. And they're like open to that too, so I was able to talk to them. So I got a lot of like feedback from them before I had to make a decision when they gave me the offer. And I think that was what really pushed me into picking Baylis, because like actually following up to that, like when I got the offer, I had another offer like the day before, which is another biomed company. It's called Psycan. They make like dental cleaning, like machines for like when you're done cleaning, they basically put all the utensils in the machine and it cleans it.
Okay, gotcha.
So, but I didn't talk to them at all about it. So I asked them for like students or anything, and they didn't get back to me at all. So I ended up doing Baylis because of all the feedback. And
so just like based on how good they were, like about being open, feedback, interacting with you, like that's what drew you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like the fact that it was biomed didn't really play a big part. I was like interested in biomed, like that's the reason why I applied to it. But like I was open to like any kind of PUI experience, like in any kind of industry.
What interested you about biomed?
Just like kind of like why they're designing things, right? Just to like improve the lives of others. It's like if you work in automotive and like I guess aerospace, it's already like a lot of the work has already been like standardized, I want to say. Like you're not innovating something extremely new, right? But in biomed, you have like the potential to be doing that. Okay. So that's what kind of drew me towards biomedical.
Okay, gotcha. Was biomed one of your streams for mech?
No, so my streams are actually solid mechanics and mechatronics.
Okay, gotcha. So you did the whole interview process for Baylis. Was that in first semester?
I was actually in second semester.
That was in second semester?
Yeah.
Okay. So when did you know you were going to be working there?
Around March.
Okay.
So yeah, it was pretty late.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And you signed there, and when did you start?
I started in May.
Okay, cool. Yeah. How was that like first day or like week at the job?
It was a lot of reading and a lot of training. So since I came from a mech background, they gave me like a lot of articles and stuff to read about that's like related to the project I would be working on. Okay. So I basically spent the whole week just like reading articles. And my team was pretty small at the time. And that week, like the week that in May, when all the co-ops start, is actually one of like the biggest cardiology like conferences in the States. So like my whole team like went, and I was just like there by myself every day just reading. And then I'd like save up all my questions, and when they came back, I would just like barrage them with like a ton of questions. So
I'm taking a back step. I should have asked you this before. What does Baylis do?
So they're a biomedical company. They focus on medical devices for cardiology and spine. So for cardiology, they mostly work on products that help you get access to the left atrium, which is like most surgeries that do minimally invasive surgeries will use like these kind of products to like get access to the heart. And for spine, they work on, I think it's pain management. So it's either like pain, like if you have pain in your spine, like in the nerves, then they use like our devices to relieve that pain.
Okay. So you mentioned your team was more on the cardiology side and like on the heart side of things. And you mentioned minimally invasive surgeries. What does that mean?
So minimally invasive surgery is basically the opposite of open heart. So instead of opening up your chest, you gain access from a vein in your groin. Okay. Like you enter, like you advance like your devices through that vein up to your heart, and then you're basically, once you get into the heart, you're in the right side of your heart. Sure. And if you want to get into the left side, you need access tools to go through the septum, which is the wall in between your heart.
Like in between the two halves of your heart?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's basically like you're taking extremely small devices and like moving them through like from your groin up to your heart, and then like performing pretty fine procedures up there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So when you're talking about reading articles, were those like journal articles or like what were you reading?
So my project was very early in the development stage, so it's more like research articles about like the phenomena that I was working on and stuff like that.
Okay, gotcha. You mentioned earlier on that there were like some things that you can't talk about with respect to like your team, but more generally at Baylis, like did you find that there was a really steep learning curve with respect? Like you mentioned that you were reading a ton of articles. Like when did you feel that you could start contributing?
So I'd say that time was like around a month before I could actually start like doing stuff on my own for like a decent amount of time. I think it depends on like what team you're on and like what kind of work you'd be doing. So like for R&D, you'd have to be onboarded on like the actual device and stuff like that. But for process, you might be able to work a lot earlier. I can't say this for sure because I'm not in process, but just the fact that they get experience through like the manufacturing, and they can start working on like Excel sheets and stuff like earlier.
So what's that distinction? You mentioned between R&D, so like research and development, and process. Like what are those two sides?
Okay, so R&D is research and development for existing and new products. So like for existing products, if there's any issues that come back to us, we'll be like researching and fixing it. And we're also improving all our current devices. So like there's like V1, V2, kind of just like making improvements along the way. And for process, it's once that product is like in detailed design, they'll figure out how to manufacture it easily. So like maybe the way that the R&D engineer made it is like extremely hard to make, like to mass produce. So the process engineer would have to make it easier to put in an assembly line, sort of thing. And then once it's like fully developed and working, they'll be making changes to improve it, to make it faster, so that it's like within, I guess like if the device is like good or not, sort of thing. Like if there's like too many faulty products, then they'll have to take a look at the assembly line and see what's wrong with it, kind of thing, and like what's causing all those like faulty devices.
Okay, gotcha. So they're more like on the quality control side of things. Okay, but you were on an R&D team. So what was the timeline on that like? Were you guys trying to like push your thing out for like 2 months from then, 2 years from then? Like what was it?
I think it was 2 years. So when I joined, they were at the end of the concept phase, which is just like validating the idea and like how feasible it actually is. Okay. And then I spent my whole 16 months in the prototyping.
Okay. Yeah. So what does prototyping look like?
So prototyping is like kind of like works like. It's like you're trying to figure out what it's going to operate at, like the parameters and everything. You're trying to just basically figure out like, okay, it works. And then you're trying to like kind of flesh it out, like make it more detailed. But not like detailed design, but just like, so for my part of the prototyping, I was just trying to figure out like what parameters we needed so that our device was feasible for like whatever it was trying to do.
Okay, so it's less about like you know what your device is trying to do after you're done the concept phase, and you know roughly like how it's supposed to work. But like but by parameters, do you mean questions like how big is it, like how light would it need to be, and just like these types of like variables about the device itself?
I'll give an example since I can't talk about mine. So one of our devices is like it uses RF energy to puncture through the septum of the heart. So some parameters of that would be like what kind of power would you need to like apply each time to consistently go through the septum, kind of thing.
And you test different versions and see which one of them is actually working better.
So I had a benchtop basically of like a water bath that was modeling. Actually, never mind, I can't say that.
Yeah. But you had like kind of like a workstation, and you were and
I was just basically doing tissue testing.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
So I guess to go more in depth about what prototyping was, so like concept was kind of just like, okay, this idea works, and then prototyping is like, okay, when like does this work and when does it not, kind of thing, and I'm kind of just like working on that.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you feel a lot of time pressure when you were doing that kind of work?
There's like some deadlines, but I didn't really feel pressured. Mainly because like once concept was validated, like once we went on to prototyping, my team grew a lot, and like there's a lot more people to pick up like any work that we needed to do.
Oh, okay. So you felt like you had enough manpower.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was a day at work like?
So a day at work. So one of the main reasons why I liked working at Baylis was kind of like you just don't know what you would be working on. Like you have you have like a plan, but it usually doesn't go the way you planned.
Okay, so like why don't you know?
So like there's always like people coming to you for help and stuff like that, and you would always like end up helping other people with stuff.
Okay.
And it's kind of just like you work on you have like a set list of stuff that you want to do, and then whenever people come to you, you get like sucked into helping them. But it's like in the end, it's like a really great learning experience too.
Okay, cool. You found yourself being able to hop on somebody else's project quickly and like be useful to them?
Yeah, so like my team was like, they had like 3 major sub-teams, which was mechanical, biomedical, and like electrical.
Okay.
So like you mostly work on one team, but then like obviously all 3 teams have to communicate well together because like they're all working towards one project, right?
Sure.
So like sometimes they would need help from other sub-teams that have a better idea of what they would need, and then they would ask them, and then you'd like work with other teams with stuff.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So you'd find yourself, like coming in early, and then you start working on something, somebody would come over and say, hey, help me with this, and then I'll do the rest of your day?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, gotcha. It's cool to me that you were able to do that and still not feel time pressured, like to finish your work. I just know from my experience. I mean, it was in a company that was not at all similar to where you were working, but it would sometimes be frustrating when somebody would like call me over and say like, hey, can you help me out with this? Because like I prioritize that and it's great for learning, but I kind of have my own stuff to get done. You never felt that way?
Well, you could always just say no too, but usually like in the beginning I would always be like, yeah, like I'll help you with this. But then like obviously if you're feeling that time crunch, and you could always say like, oh, I need to finish this before I can help you with that, and they would understand. Okay, because usually like when you need help with stuff and you go up to people and ask them, and if they're busy then they can't really help you until later, then you understand, right?
Right. So. Okay. And you didn't feel like there were any dynamics with like because you were a PUI, because you were co-op, like you had to say yes or anything like that?
Well, a little bit, but it's also like you're the one person that's in charge of like a specific part. So like you have to finish it. No one else can finish it, kind of thing, right? Right. It's not like if you help them that your work will be done by someone else, kind of thing. Right. And so like all parts of the project need to go forward. So
and you need to get yours done, for it not to be a blocker there. Gotcha. How big was your team?
So when I started, it was like 5 people. When I left, it was 15.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. When did that explosion happen?
It happened so I started in May. We finished prototyping like close to September, and then from September to January we hired a lot of people. Just because like once like the project was validated and went to prototyping, it was like up and running basically. So we needed to hire a lot of people to fill up all the positions for like, because we didn't have a mechanical team, we didn't have like an electrical team at all. Right. And like our biomed team was like 1 person. So.
Okay, you mentioned once you finished prototyping, were you continuing to prototype after September, or were you done by the time September rolled around?
So like concept and prototyping were kind of similar. It's just like more data and like more knowledge of how the phenomena works, basically. Okay. And how the science behind it works. Okay. So like we found like basically for concept we found that it can work, but we're not sure when and how. So we're just trying to go more in depth, test a bunch of cases and see which cases work and which ones don't. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. And you usually need people to do more specific work after you got past a certain point? Yeah. Okay. What did it feel like to be like somebody who has been on the project longer than most of the people who were on? Yeah, it feels weird. Yeah. A lot of people say I'm like ancient, like an ancient co-op compared to everyone else. Did you, what was the dynamic like with like full-timers who came on board? Did you onboard anybody? Yeah, I onboarded like everyone after me basically. On like the stuff that I was working on. Yeah, I would onboard them. Did they know that you were a co-op? Yeah. Oh, okay. You didn't try to like pull some shit where you're just like, I'm a full-timer? Okay. Did you find like the team dynamic changed between going from 5 people to 15 people? I think there were some like growing pains. Like communication was obviously a lot harder with like 15 people. Like before we would have like team meetings where it's like everyone. Yeah. But sooner or later you kind of realize that like once you have like 15 people, you can't really have like a full team meeting. You have to have like sub team meetings for each one, and then like the manager can be updated from like the team leads basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you would no longer just like know everything that's going on by default.
Yeah. So like before it would be like, oh yeah, this one biomed person's working on this mech person's working on that. And then in the future it would be like, okay, all these people are on my team and they're working on that, but I have no idea what other people are working on unless they talk to me and ask for help, and I like probe them for info.
Did you ever feel like out of the loop?
Yeah, for some stuff I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Did you find like the social dynamics changed from 5 to 15?
It was like harder to get to know people better as a person, but I wouldn't say like for working it felt like the same. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. How did you go about getting to know people like on an individual level?
I mean, the main thing that I did to get to know people better was to just like go up to them, ask them what they're working on, and then just like talk to them.
Was that something you did consciously? You're like, I'm going to go do that now? Or did it just happen organically?
Usually it was like, if there's like a low period where like I don't have any work, I would just like go up and see what other people are doing. Just like ask them about stuff. And yeah. And I like at lunch and stuff, when you like go down and you like, there's no one you know sitting, you just like sit up to, like you go up to someone, you sit down and you talk to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. How big is Baylis as a company? Or like how big is your office?
I think it's like 400, 500 people.
It's not all in that office though, is it?
We have 3 buildings along Matheson, which is in Mississauga.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's all kind of on one compound, or like one, all very walkable. Okay. Yeah. Did you end up interacting much with teams outside of yours?
Yeah. I mean, our project was kind of unrelated to a lot of them.
Sure.
But like for the ones that were, we would work with them a lot. So like our project had a few electrical components. So like we would talk with like other projects that had like electrical components, because they would have like electrical engineers that would be able to help our team.
Okay, gotcha.
Stuff like that.
Was there anything that the company did to like help facilitate you actually meeting those people?
So I'd say like our group of co-ops, like they do a lot of like co-op events where like you get to meet other like co-ops around the company.
Nice.
So like I'd say I got to know a lot of co-ops well. In terms of like full-time employees, we did have some like initiatives to help like improve like networking and stuff like that. Yeah. So like we had one thing where it was like a coffee time kind of thing where like you sign up and then you just match people up and you get to talk to people. Yeah. So you could get people from process, from production. You could get like managers that sign up and you could like get matched with them and talk to them about their experiences. So that's pretty cool.
Did you do that?
Yeah.
Nice.
So I did it for I did it twice. For the first time I got like a staff R&D engineer that was in charge of like one of our already like made products. So I asked him a lot about like how he designed it and stuff like that. And then I also got like a media communications, like a marketing. That's completely different from what you're doing. Yeah. How was that? That's cool. Like she did a lot of like artistic stuff, and she helped improve like the website for our company. Oh, okay. Yeah. That's dope. What were the co-op events like? Pardon? The co-op events, what were they like? So we had so closer to the end of my term, we had like monthly, like I want to say like seminars, but, like presentations about like where full-times would come in and say like, oh, like how a day in the life of like a process engineer would be like, or a day in the life of like a marketing engine or a marketing person would be like, sort of thing. So they're just like, they'll do a lot of events where just like they try and teach us more about the company, especially for people who've only been like, who are only there for 4 months. They won't get a lot of like exposure to different parts of the company, right? So they kind of just like make all these events where all the co-ops are invited. Okay. Yeah. That's awesome. Were there a lot of co-ops at Baylis? So when I started, we had like 20. And then in the summer, we had like a giant spike of like 50. And then now I think it's back down to like 30. So we're like steadily growing. Oh, okay. Yeah. Gotcha. So one of the things that, like, reason why I find that interesting is because you say you have like 50 co-ops in the summer, you've got a 400% company, roughly, but what you're working on is quite delicate and very, like, human and important and, like, volatile sounding. What were, like, did that ever, like, stress on you? Or, like, what were kind of the safeguards in place to make it so that co-ops could work on this kind of stuff? I mean, even though, like, some co-ops may have like individual projects where they're like in charge of, there would always be someone like that they report to, and that would always like look over their work.
Okay.
So that was kind of like one safeguard. And also like there's always like milestones in like design process where like you do have like design reviews, and you have like bigger meetings with like more experienced people that can give you feedback on stuff.
Sure.
So like they have the final say on like, oh, this is good, this can go on or not. So it's like if you make a mistake, they'll most likely catch it, and there's not that much pressure, I don't think, with stuff like that.
Was there a point in time where you felt you started making like markedly less mistakes?
I would say no. I
No?
think I made a lot of mistakes over my 16 months, but I think like that's not a bad thing, right? So
Okay.
yeah, like you learn from your mistakes, and like especially because like we're in prototyping, so it was like it goes by pretty fast. Like you're always doing a lot of different stuff, so like there's always like potential to make mistakes. Like if you're doing something like the same thing for like a year,
Sure.
then it would make sense that like over time you wouldn't make mistakes. But if you keep doing different projects and working on different stuff that you're not familiar with, then it's like I think it's fine to make mistakes.
So that's interesting. You mentioned early on that you wanted to go to one place for a long time so you can get more in depth on like a specific topic, specific field, specific company.
Yeah.
Did you feel like there was enough variety of work, given that you were working on the same team for 16 months?
Yeah. So like what I mentioned before about like working with different teams. So I'll do that a lot. And originally I worked on the biomed team, like the biomed sub team for the first 12 months. And then my original POI contract was only for 12 months.
Sure.
So I extended an extra 4 months and switched over to the electrical side. So I got to switch up what I was doing, but also be on the same project.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That seems like a good balance. Did you have another kind of learning spike when you did that?
Yeah. Like there was like another month where I was just sticking by people asking tons of questions.
Oh, okay. Was that a lot more like circuits knowledge, or like what did you have to learn?
Yeah, it was basically like circuits and coding with LabVIEW, stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Because we use LabVIEW as like a prototyping software.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Did your view on like the biomed industry change like in the 16 months that you were there?
I would say my view for the biomed industry like got better. Like I wasn't really sure about how the biomed industry was, but like after being there for 16 months, I really enjoyed it. Like they put a lot of emphasis on like putting the patient's needs first.
Sure.
And like designing for the patient. And they also present like stories about like patients who use our devices. And it kind of helps like motivates people to like continue working on what they've been doing, because it's like the products that we make actually make a difference in people's lives, and that's kind of like why I wanted to work in biomed originally. So
now that you're back from PUI, does biomed become kind of a more attractive option for you?
Yeah, I'll definitely say biomed is an attractive option. I don't have like the stream courses, but I have like looked into taking more biomed related courses. Especially in fourth year when you have like a lot of technical electives to choose from.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there more flexibility in MEC in fourth year?
So we get 1 technical elective first year and then 3 second year.
Okay.
Like we get a list of courses to choose from.
And then you don't have to dedicate all of them to like your stream courses.
Yeah, you don't.
Okay, nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
How has like your outlook on like mechanical engineering or engineering in general changed over the course of being gone for 16 months?
I realized that like it doesn't really matter what discipline you're in.
Sure.
Like if you're in a discipline that's not related to what you want to work in, it doesn't mean you can't work there. It just means you just have to like work harder towards it. Kind of like, cause like you don't have all the knowledge, but like just because you did a certain discipline doesn't mean you can't get hired for that job.
Right.
Yeah, because like I was in like I had no bio knowledge. Like my bio knowledge is basically grade 12, like biology, right?
Oh, okay.
And I ended up doing like a lot of work in the biomed sub team, and I made like a lot of like I'd say like impactful decisions on like where the device would be headed.
Sure.
So I definitely think like. Yeah, like it doesn't matter what you study as long as like, cause like when you work, it's always like you're constantly learning too, right? So just because like you graduate with like without knowledge doesn't mean you can't get hired for a job that doesn't have.
Right. What do you feel needs to be shown to get hired for a job that you don't have the knowledge for?
I think one good thing is definitely like projects and like stuff that you do like on your own time.
Sure.
So like since you can't show it through courses or like coursework or like past experiences, you can always just do it through like individual stuff or like going out to like I know hackathons are like really big right now, right? So like if you're interested in biomed but you don't really have experience in that, like you could join like a biomed hackathon or like do like not research, but I guess research would also be very useful, or like volunteer work, stuff like that.
Okay. I'm wondering, like, seeing you coming back from PY, did that change your outlook on extracurriculars or kind of those personal projects that you were talking about? Like, how do you think your approach to that changes in fourth year?
I guess they like put an emphasis on it, like especially like to do stuff that's not entirely like mech related, because you might find like an interest that you've never like realized you had,
right?
Sort of thing.
Like, how is that manifested? Like, is there anything that you feel like you're trying now because of that realization?
I think after PY, it's like a lot of people say I've changed. Like,
yeah,
I'm more outgoing, I guess. So, I guess like one thing would be like before PY, I probably wouldn't be doing this right now.
Right.
But now I'm just like more open to doing different stuff. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
What do you think about PY? What do you think it is about PY that caused that change?
I think it's more towards like the work environment at Baylis. Kind of like, especially because like during my first week, they kind of just like threw me in the deep end and just like all left. So like I had to find stuff to do when I didn't have anything really in mind of what I could do. So like the culture at Baylis is actually like you can basically just go up to anyone and like if you're interested in what they do, you can talk to them. Which is kind of like something that I had to get used to, but when I did, it's like very rewarding.
Right. Do you feel like that's carried forward from there?
Yeah. So you realize just like everyone's open to talking about like what they do, unless they're like signed by an NDA, right? But you just have to ask, basically.
It manifested enough that your friends have noticed that just in day-to-day life?
Yeah, apparently.
That's awesome. What do you think you're going to be up to like after school?
So I'm looking into like a full-time position, like
sure.
In like again in any industry. I'm kind of interested because like I only did a PY in Biomedical and I don't have any really like relevant engineering experience prior to that.
Right.
So like I'd still be interested in trying different things like automotive, aerospace, stuff like that. And I'm also looking into either doing a master's,
right? Like
a MASC, which is like research based. But I haven't really worked that hard on that yet, so I'm not sure. And there's also like potential to go back to Baylis.
Right. With respect to looking at those other industries, it's awesome to hear you say that. Just because, like, I know I've been talking to a bunch of fourth years, and they felt like, oh, like I really need like to be continuing to pursue what I did over PY or like I've had experience with before. And you seem like you're completely like don't feel pressured to do that.
Yeah, it's more like I don't really see the point in like keeping going into biomed when it's like I haven't really experienced the other industries. Like you might enjoy something else a lot more than what you've done before, right? So I kind of want to see how everything is before I make like a big decision to like stay with that for like 10 plus years or something like that. Yeah. Right.
And do you think that that's something that you could like switch from? Like, say you get there, you don't like it. It doesn't sound like you feel like you're making a huge commitment.
I mean, I guess you are in a way, but it's also just like there's also that like what if you go back to like what you've been working on for the past 16 months and you haven't like experienced anything else.
Right. Do you how are you going about like thinking about that, about like what you want to try?
I think one helpful thing is like when everyone comes back from PY, they all have like all these experiences from different companies, and it's like a good way to like figure out like what kind of things would be interesting to you. Okay. Especially because like even though you haven't worked there, it's like you know someone who has, and they might have some feedback on like if that would be a good choice or not for you.
Right. Okay. So you actually have the first-hand experience from somebody who's pretty similar to you.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody does want to do something similar to you, like if they were to ask about biomed, like what advice would you give to somebody who wants to get into that industry?
I'd say like as long as you have like the interest to go into biomed,
Mm-hmm.
I think like that's the main part of like what a lot of companies are looking for. It's just like if you're passionate about something,
Mm-hmm.
it's more like because like you can learn how to do stuff, but like you can't learn how to be interested in something, right?
Right.
And that interest is like what drives you into like working well towards something.
Okay, gotcha. What do you think is a good way to demonstrate that kind of interest?
I think like the experience thing I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you have past experience in research and like if you do further education in something more like specific that you're interested in,
Mm-hmm.
and also like volunteering, stuff like that.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, because it's like if you don't have like the coursework to back it up, kind of
Sure.
thing, right? You can show that you're interested by like going out and like volunteering for stuff like that's like related to what you want to work in.
Sure. And like that actually differentiates you and shows you care.
Mm-hmm.
Sticking to the advice theme, if you were to be able to talk to Raymond before PY, is there any advice you'd give? And if so, like what is that?
I'll tell him to be more open earlier, like go talk to people earlier, because like it did take me like a decent amount of time to get used to like the culture at work. Like, oh, like I can actually just like go up to people and ask them, and like they won't get annoyed with me and stuff
Sure.
like that. And also to like take more initiative in your work.
Mm-hmm.
So like there were times where like I was working on stuff that was pretty important,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd always feel the need to talk to someone higher up just to make sure.
Mm-hmm.
But then like during PY you have like these feedback sessions kind of thing where you have to like do a midterm review and then a final review.
Right.
Like during those reviews they would say like, oh, like you could have been more like you could have took more like you could have been more in charge of like your work kind of thing. You didn't have to like come to us and talk, like ask us so many times sort of thing.
Right.
Which is more like, oh, I could have done a lot more by myself.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that's translated to how you work with people now?
Somewhat, I think. Like I'd say like that kind of feedback was more like geared towards like working better independently. So I would say like during group work, I do think that there are times for like group sessions, and there's also time for like when you work by yourself.
Sure.
So I do think that it's helped me with like figuring out what work needs to be done together and then what work needs to be done like on my own,
Mm-hmm.
and like which work can actually be like split up from the group sort of thing.
Okay, gotcha. That's awesome. I think this has been great. I think like we've gotten kind of what we want to talk about, and also like thank you for hopping on. Like I'd never talked to you before this, so just like being willing to hop on here and talk about your experience. Yeah, like thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem.
If somebody is interested in like the biomed industry, or just interested in some facet of your experience, and they want to contact you, where could they find you?
They can find me on Facebook.
Okay.
If you're interested, you could just talk to me. I'm open anytime, honestly.
Okay, cool. We'll link the Raymond's Facebook profile in the description to this episode. Was there anything else that you want to say or share?
I guess some final advice is just like your experience is. It's like it sounds very cliche, but like your experience is like how much work you put into it, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you're willing to go out there and like try a lot of different stuff and like open to like asking people stuff that you don't know, then
Mm-hmm.
it's like you'll learn a lot more than struggling by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like ask for help and reach out.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get more out of it.
Yeah.
All right, gotcha. Well, thank you, Raymond. And this has been That Thing I Did for a Year. We'll catch you next week.